and peace to you all. My name is Umi. Thank you for tuning in to my YouTube channel. So I wanted to speak for a moment on astrology and human psychology, but more so I wanted to pose a question and get you guys' feedback and just find out your philosophy or your take on this. But are we basically living out a program? And I know many feel that astrology is a bit of a pseudoscience, and I've long since let go of that idea as I explored not only my own natal chart, but just seeing the validity and the correlation between a person's natal chart and what's really happening in their life, and very specific things, that it wasn't a matter of these sort of general readings that, oh, you know, you're going to be good at art or you're going to get married young, but specific things. And for me personally, I have my sun in the 4th house opposite Pluto in the 10th house and Scorpio moon, as many of you know. And growing up, I actually experienced a lot of challenges and almost trauma from my parents' trauma. So both of my parents have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. My father's PTSD was a lot more severe and violent than my mother's PTSD. He was on a military vessel, military ship that caught fire, and there was an explosion, and one of the men on the ship did die. And my father witnessed that and saw the man's body. And so for years and years and years, from the time I was a child, I actually witnessed him waking up in the middle of the night, which contributes to my insomnia today. But he would often wake up in the middle of the night screaming and roaring from the belief or the projections, the flashbacks that he was on fire. And so I witnessed the depth of human psychology from just that experience in and of itself. And so growing up, domestic violence and issues between my parents, as they both struggled with their own psychological challenges, was revealed in my natal chart. I saw how that Sun-Pluto opposition and Scorpio moon and Neptune and Uranus in my 12th house, how this all began to cycle back around to not only what it is that I do today, but other psychological perceptions I have on reality. And so those specific things, you know, that I read about myself, and as I began to know myself, the question was posed to me one night. I woke up and I was thinking like, man, what if this is just all a program? You know, the same way you purchase some form of AI or an electric car, and the instructions tell you what this car is capable of. It goes left, right, it flips. You know, it can do these spin outs, and there's just certain things it can do and then certain things it can't do. It's limited to just what the manufacturer has told you it can do. And so as I look at my natal chart and that of others, I think, are we limited to these things? Is this literally some form of a program where we're actually living out this blueprint? And maybe this is why it has been so taboo. Maybe this is why there was an attempt to prevent people from learning about astrology and really demonizing people who looked into their astrology, because it's so specific, it's so spot on, it's so useful. Why would this be hidden? Unless, of course, it's like looking behind the curtain and going beyond the veil, and all of a sudden you realize like, well, man, if this is so specific, if these planets have such immense impact on human emotion and human experience and human interaction, what's beyond this? And am I limited to this? Is this my life experience this lifetime? So I do talk about things like karma. I did a video called We're All on the Wheel, and I make mention that there's a wheel within a wheel within a wheel within a wheel. There's layers to this. There's levels to this. So the astrology is useful to an extent. But I've said time and time again as well, humbly, I'm restating that we're all intended to transcend our astrology. Because the moment you become just your astrology, the moment you're limited to what you've read about yourself, and it becomes something you believe to be true, or something you feel that I can't go beyond this thing. If it's a relationship challenge, you know, you've had issues with relationships throughout your life, and you've read something that just says, you know, you're not intended to get married, or you have this 7th house stellium and there's just all these challenges there. It's like, well, what else is there to do? It's written in the stars. This is what it is. But when you transcend this allows you to not only see beyond the purpose of that lesson in relationships, but also how you can experience relationships from a different perspective, so that you're not bound to the hardship of a particular lesson. So for me, when it comes to psychology and seeing the negative or the downside to psychology, now I'm able to see how I can apply it for a more useful purpose. I can see how I can assist others and contribute to others. I'm sorry, guys, for the distractions. I do have children, despite my greatest effort to... Do you mind? Can you take that in there, please? Thank you. Okay, I'm back. So, although I'm not one to get really heavily wrapped up in conspiracy theories, I do enjoy exploring philosophy. I do enjoy thinking outside the box, seeing beyond the veil, seeing the bigger picture in things. And some things are not worth sharing. I do feel that we're intended to receive certain insights and to just absorb it and to let it resonate with us for a while. So oftentimes when there's this aha moment or some form of a revelation, I just like to see how practical it is. So in considering this idea that perhaps our lives are a part of a program, not necessarily saying it's some sadistic, alien program coming from outer space, but I do feel that there are just things that we're not fully aware of because we're still in somewhat of an infantile stage of our human development and spiritual development. And for example, as a mother, with my oldest son, there's a lot of things that he's teaching me now as he's getting older and he's exploring technology and he's just growing with his time. There's a lot that he's teaching me. But for the most part, he's always been under my influence. So when I would say, go take a bath, or it's time to eat, or this is what you're learning today, he really didn't have much choice as far as just carrying out my wishes because he's under my influence as his mother. That's just the role I play. So for many of us in exploring our astrology, we're under the influence of planetary bodies. That's really what astrology is. It's indicating, even if you're someone who explores your month-to-month readings and forecasts, is basically an astrologer saying, well, this is what's happening with the planets and this is how it's going to affect you, your life, career, relationships, psyche. And so we take that into consideration when we're planning and we're carrying out our day. When you look at your natal chart, it's a blueprint. It's a program. The same way we run programs on our computer, they serve a purpose. They have a function. So for many of us, we serve a purpose. We have a function. There's something in life we're intended to do. I can absolutely identify my life so far, from childbirth to marriage to the way I decorate my home to even being on YouTube talking about metaphysics and occult studies. It can all be identified in my natal chart. So I'm like, that's great. Wow. But a part of me thinks, well, I feel like I have manufacturer's instructions that come with just my human experience right now. I feel as if that for me is a limitation. Not a bad thing. It's not this sort of, at least it hasn't evolved to this feeling of wanting to rebel in any way or start a revolution against, some higher forces of manipulation. But I do consider that there is something there that isn't quite fully exposed as far as our human experience that we need to come into awareness of. And perhaps this is a part of our transcending the limitations of our astrology. Perhaps this is a part of the enlightenment, the awakening, the grander pursuits, and astrology is just a stepping stone. It's just one of many things to showcase that life isn't what you think it is, that we're not intended to just, eat, live, go to church, and raise our families and die. There's more to it. So as people are exploring outside of what they've been told through organized religion or from their governments, then they're exploring things like metaphysics and occult studies and astrology. But as you begin to go outside of that, you'll begin to discover something even greater. And this could be the very liberation that has been suppressed from human experience, that you're meant to feel limited by certain things. And limitation is, to me, connected to a form of enslavement. So this may be a bit extreme for some of you. I know everyone won't agree with this idea, and that's absolutely okay. But that's why I'm posing this to you all, to get your thoughts on it. Have you felt limited by your astrology? Have you read some things in your natal chart that felt like, man, why do I have to deal with so much pain or darkness or trauma? Or why do I have so many relationship issues? Or why have I always struggled with my health? Because keep in mind, and this is just from my honest to God experience and looking at my father and seeing how his mind was projecting that he was on fire, his mind had created this reality, and he physically felt that, and he reacted based on what his mind was creating and projecting, although from everyone else that it wasn't real. So I applied that situation. However psychologists and medical professionals want to term it and diagnose it, it's still a phenomena to witness that. So I applied my understanding of my father's phenomena with his post-traumatic stress disorder to how many human beings on this planet have some form of post-trauma. From everything you've witnessed in the world, there's some trauma you've witnessed that has shook you to the core, has disturbed you, whether it's from personal experience with your family or simply witnessing war. And this is why with media and entertainment, a lot of this is really desensitizing people. Your children can play Grand Theft Auto and gun down people, and we see there's really a very thin line between entertainment and bombings and shootings and what's really happening in the world. And so as that line begins to fade and we're almost not even able to distinguish between the news and what we're seeing and what's really and what's being projected in media and entertainment, this just goes to show that how we're understanding our reality, that there's something going on. There is some underlying agenda, if you will. So chime in on the discussion. I don't know any particular books off top that could maybe explore more on this subject, but I know for some of you, you have delved into these ideas and theories of our human experience. And it's easy to take advantage of children. It's easy to take advantage of babies because in a sense, they're helpless. So for many of you, and myself included, there have been moments where I felt helpless to make certain changes in my life, that it was beyond my control. It was outside of my power. And so the astrology and the knowledge empowered me because I became aware of it. But then how to make the changes, how to implement the change, how to resist the influence of a planet. So it seems quite profound, even with this Saturn and Pluto conjunction, and then things we're seeing happening on a global level to do with government. In the sign of Capricorn, this is all happening. We're seeing so much happening with government structure. It's a powerful influence. You know, it's not just a matter of believing. These things are actually happening, whether we believe them or not. We're seeing changes and shifts in the structures of government. So I'm not denying the planetary bodies have a powerful influence on human emotion interaction. But what I am suggesting is that as we begin to pierce through that veil of the limitations of how the planets and how energies and things affect us, there's layers to that and ways to transcend that, ways to go beyond that. That is the work, you know, that is what, as Christ says, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain. I really feel that that's connected to us understanding our God body and us understanding the power we have as a collective and the power of the mind, so that we don't just go with the flow of things. There can be some efforts to change what's happening with the earth itself as far as the pollution and degrading of our earth and devaluing the earth and what she provides. You know, all of this artificial food and deforestation and all these different things that are going on. So we likely have some control over these particular aspects of human life. But think about that. Just see if you've really pondered on your contributions to your own evolution beyond just the things that you're studying, but really on a spiritual level, seeking to understand what is my human experience about, you know, beyond just my life lessons in love, relationship, career, health, and so forth. What is there more to this? So thank you guys for tuning in. I do appreciate your feedback, and you can certainly schedule a personal session if you are interested in delving into your astrology to understand more about your nature, more about yourself, exploring your path to awakening. I would love to engage in that with you. That information is in the description. So thank you guys for tuning in, and until next time, peace.